Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Pundit's Pundit. I am not Denzel Snipes. He is lucky enough to be covering the Super Bowl in Las Vegas, not Vegas. Okay, depends on what dialect you are. With JB Ellis and the rest of our NGBN TV crew out there. So my name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Man Mouth. Once again, not Denzel Snipes. But you know what? Tell you what, Denzel, I hope you're having a really good time covering your first Super Bowl. And, you know, it's an experience that George and I tell you, we've been through it before. It's an unbelievable time. JBL as well. He's been to one before. So, you know, he knows the drill. But Denzel, I've been watching the updates all week. Anyways, Pundit, I'm your moderator all night. We're not doing any handoffs tonight. I am pleased to be joined by the pundit himself, Jacob Christner.
What's going on? And I was wondering if George shaved recently and stuff like that, or if you've shaved. Just depending on which, when I saw his picture up there first.
There you go. And speaking of George Eichhorn, great transition segue. Boy, that might be well in this business, Chris.
Yeah, Jacob, I'm proud of you. And Scott and Candy, great to be with you tonight.
And yes, Candy, another segue. Segue might be a hashtag before it's over with. As we go to Candy, probably the prettiest of the bunch. That's for sure. I'm pretty loud, but she's pretty. So
she is, but there's not a lot of there's not a lot of competition here with us.
Well, we'll make our people. We do what we can to try to put together quality shows. And speaking of the show, just to give everybody an idea what it is about. The future is here is the title, as you can see if you're watching it on YouTube. But we're going to talk about Fox, ESPN, and Warner Brothers Discovery joining the streaming business. They're going to talk about the mayor of Las Vegas, who's hesitant about bringing the A's to Las Vegas. This is certainly a hot topic. I'm wondering if the timing is good during the Super Bowl, but whatever. It's there anyways. And Caitlin Clark and TikTok, you know, we'll get into that in a little bit too. But before we go any further, we want to let everybody know that Pundit being broadcast around the world. Okay. The audio version of Pundit can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube. South Florida Tribune. There's vermin inside of me. Okay. And no, Jacob, nobody ever has to see what your hand looks like because it is what it is. This is leave it at that. But anyways, please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for more subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problem. Be active in the chat room. That's one way to do it. Send your topic ideas to southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, give me a call at 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Website, www.southfloridatribune.com. There should be three. Everybody knows by now anyways. It's the modern age. Or Twitter, you can find us there at Tribune South / it's also on X. Candy Ambling is normally behind the scenes, but she's in front of the scenes today as one of our panelists. She also handles the website, handles and produces the show. Talking about multitasking, that is it. I have a book out there called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It's old school media versus new school media, available on Kindle and Amazon. And we have a working relationship with NGBN TV, which is broadcasting on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon, and mobile devices. It's going to be in 85% of the homes in the United States, Canada, and 4.1 billion mobile devices. Ask me to count $4.1 billion, and I'll be singing Looking for a Miracle, and nobody wants to break their Memorex classes with that. So with that said, yeah,
Memorex.
Yeah, everybody remember Memorex? I remember it. Of course, the panel probably should. But one thing we're going to take care of now is topic numero uno one. Fox, ESPN, and Warner Brothers Discovery teaming up to create a joint streaming platform. First of all, I'll give you my 2 cents, and then Jacob's going to do a lot of it as well. It's inevitable. This wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when. These networks have seen what Amazon's doing. They're just joining. They're just trying to make sure that they don't go out there and lose a lot of their audience to the other ones. So this is just one of those things. And it's a fluent story. We're going to talk about it on future editions of the Sports Exchange, but I'm glad we're just touching base with it now. So for Fox, ESPN, Warner Brothers, not a matter of if, it was a matter of when. And 3 credible companies getting involved with the streaming business. What are we doing here? We're streaming, right? What is everybody doing now? Streaming, right? Welcome to the big show, Fox, ESPN, and Warner Brothers. With that, I'll turn it over to Jacob Christner.
This is going to be 14 basic networks going on streaming within these 3 companies. 14 of them. And see, you want to know what this does is like what we usually have is, okay, like for instance, CBS, we have one, like for instance, the NCAA tournament. We have one on True TV. We have one on True TV. We'll have one on TBS. We'll have one on CBS. Well, all that kind of stuff. They're trying their way of doing that, which means you're going to have to get all the streaming networks to watch all the games. Which would that, you know what happens there? It makes it just as expensive as cable, because you know they're all going to be $8 a month, $6 a month, $12 a month, every single one of them. That's gonna. We all go to streaming because it's cheaper than cable at the moment, but not if you're getting all those streaming networks. But it is all in a money deal. At the same time, you're not going to have an issue finding these games because some people won't have True TV. Some people won't have a TBS. So it's like they might have to go to a bar to go get it, or they just have to keep up on their phone. The biggest thing about this is you will get them at a price, but you'll get every single game now. And it's just with 3 networks and 3 businesses, 3 companies.
All right, I want to go to the chat room real quick. Okay, Candy, put Paul Spencer's comment up. This is good. Even though it's not a topic, it's certainly worth bringing up. So we're going to do a lot of different things here tonight on Pundit's Pundit. So Paul Spencer, who happened to be on the Sports Exchange last night, did an outstanding job. Looking forward to working with him a lot more. But he says, what number does Kobe Bryant statue have? 8 or 24 on it tonight? Thoughts? I haven't seen it, Paul. I don't know. If you can find out, or George, Candy, or anybody wants to research it, I'll be more than happy to find it. I haven't had a chance to look at it. Candy?
Possibility. I could see one on the front, one on the back. Each of them.
Interesting.
So I was told that, or I read that they're going to unveil 3 statutes. So I'm guessing they're going to have at least both numbers on one. And then I don't know about the third one, but they're going to have 3 statutes, actually, not just one.
Wow.
There you go, Paul. You got it. You worked with Candy last night. If you need it, she will find it. Okay, George, go ahead and talk about streaming.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was inevitable. We know that this is the wave of the future, and the fact that ESPN and Fox Sports and Warner Brothers are teaming up really comes as very little surprise. I'm not sure. I would imagine they saved the announcement, obviously, for the 1 week of the year that everybody is watching and listening, and that's Super Bowl week. I don't think that was just a coincidence that it leaked out or was announced formally this week. Now, these services, from what I understand, are going to be, national broadcasts like we thought they would be in playoff games from the major sports leagues, which would be NBA, NHL, MLB, and NFL. But there's a lot, like Scott alluded to, there's a lot to be worked out in the details. Okay. But having a new sports streaming app, I think, is going to bring a better look to the people out there that want and have been craving for this. And we all know what's been going on with, some of the other networks, Apple and Peacock, and those that are kind of doing a la carte stuff right now. Now, from what I understand, this will be a monthly charge. There will be a price, a fixed price that they're looking at. We don't know what it's going to be yet. But imagine this, all the live sports you could ever want to watch, most of the games, again, on Warner, Fox, and ESPN. This is something, like I said, that's been in the works for a while. They're going to have things like the PGA Tour, folks, and NASCAR. College football and basketball are 2 big ones, and we have to wait and see what's going to happen with that, because so far NBC and CBS have not, committed to it. But right now it looks like, for sure, the list is going to be very lengthy of all the sporting events. They're going to have, like, I know the preliminary talked about the Grand Slam events. Well, that would be, I stand corrected. Of course, Warner Brothers has the Masters, the Golf League, PGA Championship, PGA Tour. So a lot of the big events are going to go to this. The thing is they got to keep it reasonable, though, because they don't want to overprice themselves and go into a situation where the smaller people, the middle to lower income folks, let's just say, don't have an opportunity to watch it. So again, I'm glad that we're going to revisit this on future shows. You guys, there's a lot to be decided, and of course, a lot more to come. So it's a wave of the future. Let's just face it.
Well, let's face it, reality. I think we may have seen the wave of the future a little bit earlier than we want to think. And I'll tell
Yeah.
you why I say that, because when Peacock decided to make that bold move by putting the Dolphins and the Chiefs on and made them pay for it. Of course, on South Florida, we didn't have to worry about it because we were in one of the counties where they were televising it, or we could have gone to a sports bar, but not applicable. That move was made. And yeah, George, I'll piggyback off of what you said. They're always going to wait for the Super Bowl to have these big, huge announcements. The Super Bowl week, for those who've never been a part of it, is one big, huge announcement after another. How many announcements can you pile up into 5, 6, 7 days? And this is just one that was inevitable. So, I think you got a taste of it earlier with the Dolphins and the Chiefs. And now all of a sudden we're seeing a bit more information how it's released now. So, again, the key is don't overprice it. And that's the way it is. So, all right, Candy.
So a quick follow-up to Paul's question. They have Vanessa Bryant released a little short video, and it shows them revealing the first statute. The first statute, he is wearing number 8, and he talks about his famous saying about leave the game better than when you first arrived. But on to streaming. The platform is going to include games from NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, WNBA, NASCAR, and college sports, including men and women's NC2A tournament, as well as golf, tennis, and the FIFA World Cup. It will include offerings from 15 linear networks: ESPN, ESPN2, ESPNU, SEC Network, ACC Network, ESPN News, ABC, Fox, FS1, FS2, Big Ten Network, TNT, TBS, True TV, and ESPN Plus. Subscribers would also have the ability to bundle the product with Disney Plus, Hulu, and or Max. So I think, and the three companies are going to actually each share 1/3 of the ownership. So they're splitting it 3 ways exactly.
That's
so
an important point.
Yes, we're getting rid of cable. I'm sorry, George?
No, I said that's an important point. I'm glad you pointed that out about the sharing. Yeah.
Exactly. When cable first came out, we're all like, okay, this is a new thing. I mean, we were used to 4 stations, 5 stations. Then we went to cable, and then you had, you could get the sports package, and you could get the movie package. And then, so the one thing I will say about streaming is I like that they're going to combine them again, kind of like cable did, and make packages for you, because there are those movie people that want to see all the movies. So if there could be streaming services for those, I mean, and I get it, because a lot of people, if you watch sports, yes, you might like movies, but you might not like a romance streaming service. Or so you're going to pay for what you really want. And I guess that's where I'm coming from. Whereas like basic cable, you get how many stations, 100 and some stations, but really how many stations do you actually watch? You probably only watch a handful. You probably watch your basic networks and then a couple of your favorite different network TVs. So I like it, but because I don't want to have to buy, I got to buy this game on Peacock. Oh, now it's Thursday night, so Thursday Night Football is on Amazon Prime, so now I got to have Amazon Prime, and now I've got to switch to, I have to switch to Peacock for this, and now I've got to go to Disney for this and that. I really wish that they could make them all one, because I think the other thing it does is, yes, for those that are tech savvy, it's easy to stream. But those that aren't tech savvy, those are the people you're going to lose, because they don't know how. They don't have a subscription to this, that, or the other thing. And I think it's going to make it harder and harder. But it is the wave of the future.
All I can think of with this, when you hear about all this stuff, all I can think of is when I talk about me being 45, maybe the baby, the litter, the run, but the run, the litter, they could say. It's like I said, maybe me being on this, but I'm still in an older generation compared to others, is I can get mad at people who just want these players instead of winning ball games. But if I want to use the common sense of it, why wouldn't they? Because this is a generation and the next one up that's going to have it all. And if you don't give it all to them, if you don't give it a thing, if you don't give them the highlights, you don't give them everything, you don't give them the channels, do all that kind of stuff, you're going to lose them. So why wouldn't they? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, let me just say this. This generation has it all anyways compared to when we only had TV way back in the day. Bear in mind, being from Metro Detroit, okay, we have one advantage over anybody else that didn't reside near the border of Canada. We had a Canadian station, and we had Hockey Night in Canada, so that wasn't the worst
Right.
thing. So all these people that were, and we were in luxury. We had 7 channels, not 7 million of them. So seriously, are you seriously?
Hockey Night in Canada and Red Green Show.
Yeah, I like Hockey Night in Canada better for all of
Yeah.
our
So wait, this is going to age me as well. Growing up, we had one television in the house. It was in the living room. You watched what you watched what Dad wanted, because Dad was kind of the ruler,
Law.
unless he was working.
Mm-hmm.
But you really watched one thing, and like you grew up with. I mean, I grew up with like Disney Sunday nights, Disney, and then Saturday nights was Love Boat and Fantasy Island, and like just certain things like that. So you only had one choice. If you wanted to watch TV, you watched it with the family in the family room.
Are you kidding me? I agree with you, Candy, 100%. My dad wanted that Hockey Night in Canada. I'm glad you brought that up, Scott. We were fortunate in Detroit because we're right across the river from Windsor, Ontario. But yeah, he got his pipe out, his corner chair, and that's what we watched. And Danny Gallivan and Dick Irvin and all the great guys.
George.
Okay.
I missed it. That's why I'm saying, all right, George. Yeah. Let me say something about Candy's family, though. None of them were brought up with pets either, right? And what do you think happened when the kids moved out? Her brother Steve's got a dog, and her sister Denise had dogs through the years, and Candy's got cats. The only one left are the Marie and Todd Shepard. They got a kid, okay? Of course, so did Emily, and Emily being the kid of the Olsons, whatever. But so they had one TV, and none of them had pets. And the first time that Candy ever went to an opening day game wasn't with Daddy with the Brewers. It was with me over watching the Tigers and the Marlins in Miami. So there you go.
Well, because my dad was a school teacher. You could not cut school to go to a baseball game. Come on, education was first.
Yeah, I know. And meanwhile, he became an usher. So go figure. Okay. Yeah, so he became an usher, and then everybody ended up getting pets, and everybody, never mind. We'll definitely lose our time here if we talk about families and we talk about this, but it's still worth bringing up because, after all, this is a family show, okay? Regardless of what numbers get retired or whatever. But I'm glad Paul Spencer gave us his 2 cents, and Candy was able to make sure that 2 cents turned into 4 cents and all that business. But in that place where there is a lot of money, and I mean a lot of money, the mayor of Las Vegas, I believe her name was Carolyn Goodman, is hesitant about bringing the A's to Las Vegas. Now, there are times to have major announcements, and there are times not to have major announcements. And this is probably one time where you shouldn't have made that announcement, but what the heck. As if there aren't enough stories in the NFL, let's just pick on the lowly A's, who, by the way, have a AAA team there as well. All I can tell you is, Carolyn, deal with it. I've been watching some of the clips that you've had up there where you're offered the A's a better, more acreage somewhere else, and they chose to go on the Strip. Okay, I get it. I think 100 acres versus a 60-acre Tropicana site. They want to be on the Strip. They think they're going to get people there. Who knows? When I was in Vegas, I didn't live in the casinos. I would take trips out to, the Grand Canyon, Hoover Dam, Bullhead City, which is properly named after me on the Arizona border. For those that know me, realize that Bullhead City is appropriate. Okay. And, in Laughlin. But, with all due respect, Carolyn, really, you're going to get them. I mean, everything's been passed. And I know that you didn't want to see the Tropicana or the Strip being involved with the baseball thing. And maybe she might be right to a certain extent, because I remember the baseball, when they had Baseball City down in the Orlando area, they tried to do a very interesting thing with the Kansas City Royals. It didn't work out, but I give credit for it. But this is a totally different situation. So, Carolyn, say what you want, but the A's are coming to Vegas, whether you like it or not. And you might want to find some green and gold attire, and knowing that you really took a shot and didn't want them, they might charge you retail. Then again, I'm not getting involved with money questions. It's beyond what I want to do. All right, Mr. Opinion, Jacob, go ahead.
Mr. Fact. No, the big thing about it is I have two different theories on this of why she is. First off, both she and Oscar were large. They've been in that area for 60 years. They were large within the gambling. They loved it. It's how it makes money. They're both old. I mean, Oscar's gone, I believe, correct?
Right, I believe he is.
Oscar's gone. But those two lived in the time of, if you remember the movie Casino.
Right.
They lived that time. When you get older, you kind of wanted certain things back. It's like gambling was their thing. It's almost like, what's a good thing? I'm trying to think of a good comparison to something like this, but they have a situation where they want to have what they used to have in their life. They want it to be, and it's changed. Two things changed it, though. Two things changed. Number one, the economic collapse. Number two, COVID. You remember it, both of those things took people away from the gambling deals. It brought people, it's like both of those made everything electronic. You could gamble through anything. You could do all this stuff. It brought sports gambling in. It brought all of those. This isn't the time anymore of Wayne Newton and go gamble and go do all this stuff, and Frank Sinatra and the Rat Pack. This isn't that time. As much as I would love it now, because I love Frank Sinatra and the Rat Pack, this isn't that time anymore. Sports are the money thing now, whether she likes it or not. But the second theory that I have with something like this too is that Oakland really, really fast lost their crowd. Remember, Las Vegas on an opening day and first season is going to fill up the stadium because of the thing. But if they're not good, it could be another team. It could be another boring situation. It could be the way that the Oakland is whatsoever, and she doesn't want that embarrassment because remember, the Knights fill the stadium. No matter what the Raiders do, they fill the stadium. The A's do not fill their stadium in Oakland. They'll fill it the first year, but if they're not good, they'll stop filling. So that could be another theory of mine whatsoever. But either way, I do believe some of the part is the gambling thing, which she wishes that it was bigger than it is, but you can no longer do that.
Well, here's the thing, okay? We all know about the honeymoon period the first year or two with any new franchise that goes there. I mean, that's a given. So, but when you have a stadium in the middle of the strip, that to me is where it gets dicey. But you know what? It doesn't matter. I mean, they're going there and they're building it, and they feel they want to build it a place that attracts people. And if you've ever been to Vegas before, sometimes it isn't bad to go to a game, okay, just to be taken away from the casino and do something else. You're going to lose your money. You're going to lose it anyways. Just have it a little bit longer, but that's either here or there. And I think she ended up backtracking on those statements a little bit and trying to have more clarity. Again, everything in Vegas that stays in Vegas doesn't mind having a little bit of backtracking as well. All right, George, go ahead. I know Candy Ibling is just waiting in the wings to eat this topic up alive. Go ahead, George.
Yeah, but you know what, guys? It's not just the mayor, because they have a very strong public schools political action committee there in Nevada. And from what I read on this is that they went to court already on Monday. So here you got the teachers, if you will, the Education Association going into state court in Carson City, and they're challenging because the allocation is up to $380 million in public funding. That was approved last June, as we know, in Nevada, and signed off by the governor, who's a Republican. But so now we're getting this backlash. Okay, but wait a second. If you go back to 2016, they approved $750 million, twice as the A's are asking for. They $750 million in public assistance toward building that stadium for the Raiders. And of course, that's the home of the Super Bowl this week. So it's a $2 billion stadium. All I'm saying is Okay, they're not asking for the amount they asked for back in 2016, 750 million. They're asking for 380 million in public funding. And by the way, I'm glad you brought up the Golden Knights. They opened that arena with no public assistance. And Scott and I remember we had a man in Detroit named Bill Davidson that also did that when he opened the Palace. Right. Yep, no public assistance. So the T-Mobile Arena, the home to the Golden Knights, got no assistance. So here we go. All right. So the thing is that you're always going to have people that are going to fight and fight and fight, and rightfully so. That you're using public funds for these millionaire owners. But this stadium is supposed to cost $1.5 billion and a retractable roof for the A's. So, I mean, I see both sides of it, but the mayor, she's not going to win this battle. Like you guys said, I mean, this is something that is going to happen, approved by Major League Baseball. And the sooner they get onto this and getting this stadium in the shovel in the ground, as they say, the better off Rob Manfred and the owners who approve this will feel about it. So it's going to happen, but I just think that obviously there's a little still inner fighting going on.
Well, I like your numbers. I'm not a math guy, but for crying out loud, you just said $2 billion and you have a Super Bowl there. So that stadium,
right,
what the Raiders already paid for itself. The Oakland A's are a little ways away from the postseason. So
yeah.
The Las Vegas A's. But all right, Candy, go ahead.
Well, George stole part of my thunder.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So that's okay. That's okay. So strong teachers union. So there's a lot of votes there that think the money should be used for public education instead of building a stadium for baseball players. The other thing that here, Las Vegas Mayor Carolyn Goodman lost a bid to have the baseball stadium within the city boundaries. And she thought that move doesn't make sense to put it on the Tropicana Hotel site because it's outside her city limits, but within Clark County. So she loses revenue by that because it's not in her city. So not only does she have the strong teachers union fighting it, so there's votes, let's face it, there's votes there that aren't happy. It's outside her city limits. She went on to personally think they've got to figure out a way to stay in Oakland to make their dreams come true. Now she's trying to recant and say, oh no, I'm excited about them coming. What is it? One way or the other. Either you wanted them in your city, you don't want them in your city, you don't want them close, you want them in Oakland. And now they're pushing for a referendum that was rejected, though, in order for them to try and stop them for building the stadium.
Good luck, Goodman.
Yeah.
And I'll leave it at that. This story is going to be a continuing story that we'll monitor on all of our shows. We'll probably, at some point or another, we could bring it back on Pundit. Sports Exchange is going to deal with it. 108 Stitches Baseball Talk will also talk about it. So we have a lot of different shows. Final topic.
The other thing I want to say is that they also don't know where they're going to be playing because the stadium, even if they build it, won't be done until at least 2028, and they're out of Oakland Stadium as of 2024. So they've got to figure out where they're going to play 25, 26, 27, and they've got to hurry up and do this because, as Manfred said, you have to make schedules out. And how do you know where you're traveling if you don't even know where the stadium is going to be?
Yeah, the one area though that I have heard though that's been talked about is Salt Lake City in Utah. I have heard
that was mentioned.
And since we're in Vegas and they do betting there, and I'll have to reach out to Rafael Esparza and tell him to come up with some odds. He's one of our betting experts over for NGBN. I'm going to send him a note. Where do you think the A's should be playing in the next few years after they're out of Oakland? But if I were going to hedge a bet, I would say Salt Lake City would be the one. That's for sure. I think Oakland, if they could have their way, they'd get rid of them tomorrow. But that's either here or there. The damage is done. All right. Last thing we want to talk about, we do have Pundit's points so we can get to them. We'll certainly do our best. It's Caitlin Clark, Cam shown on TikTok during an Iowa-Maryland game, gets 800,000 views. Could this be used in future recruiting? You know what? I have never heard of this thing before, so you know what? I'll save you guys a little time, and I am deferring to Jacob Christner. Jacob, Remember, we have room for Pundit's points, but I'm giving you my 1 or 2 minutes so you can be a little more long-winded because I am taking a no comment and a fifth on this one.
Well, the reason I was bringing that up is because there was 1.5 million people that watched Iowa and Maryland. So then they brought up the Caitlin Clark cam, which got on the TikTok, which got 800,000, which means from her point of view, it's kind of like a video game. Like her point of view, and you're seeing every movement. Now, this is what I'm thinking. I'm just saying theory. Remember, I can be opinion, I can be fact, but there's also theories. I like to ask questions to get other people's opinions. What if this became something big and you could see, instead of going to the games all the time, what if somebody that is recruiting could watch that from so many different players, high school players? They could do all that kind of stuff, the GoPro on there. Do all of that and watch, because when you see someone like Caitlin Clark and we see it from a distance, you know how smart of a ball player she is. You see how she moves on the court, her footwork, everything, just all that stuff. Then you can see it, 800,000 people seeing it on, you know what I'm saying, on TikTok, seeing all of that from her point of view. You're watching her footwork, her movements, all this stuff, her jump shot, the rebounds, her positioning. You're seeing all that stuff up close and personal, point of view. That's what a Clark cam, that's what that cam would show, especially from something like that and people watching. What if, there are still going to be recruiters that are going to go to the games. But what if you get future recruiters that start looking all over the place and people start doing the GoPro, and they start doing different things and showing themselves like that and putting it on TikTok in their game? That's what I'm bringing up. It's like that can be a recruiting tool if people don't want to travel. That might be another thing. It's like, and mind you, the older ones are always going to travel. All old heads are going to travel. They're not going to get forever. But you're going to see 25-year-old recruits. Remember the movie, I'm just going to say this, the movie Moneyball. You had the Billy Bean's character, Brad Pitt, and then you've got the kids like 25 and he's a math nerd. We have this all over the place now, but that was huge. That was a huge thing then to try. This is another thing to try. It's something you could see. You could see them recruiting like that, and then the old heads laughing at them and doing everything, and then they have no choice. They have no choice but to do it.
Okay. All right, George.
Well, I'm not into the recruitings as much as I am the Caitlin Clark effect. Okay. Wherever she goes, wherever their team travels, you're seeing spike in sales. You're seeing an increase in ticket sales. You're seeing an increase in concession sales. And the effect she's having right now, whether it is social media, TikTok, yeah, but also at the gate, okay, because it's crazy. They're getting so much money for floor seats. I heard some of them are going for $1,000 each. The teams are the Big Ten teams, especially all the opponents are happy when they play a road game because obviously Caitlin has such a great following, and I'm so proud of this young lady. And she's a senior now, but she has really, really helped spike interest in the NCAA women's basketball movement, if you will. And they've been obviously, making progress for a number of years. It's not just her. There are a lot of great players that have come through, as we know, the NCAA, and then graduated, if you will, lack of a better term, gone on to the pros and played for the WNBA. But yeah, there's more excitement. There's more things happening. And yes, Jacob, I'm sure that the recruiting may be a little bit different now if TikTok's involved and other social media. But I'm just so excited and so amazed that all these incendiary things like television ratings and attendance at the games and the number of programs, the number of Caitlin jerseys that are being sold. I mean, it's just incredible. Women's basketball is just basking in the glory of this wonderful player. But again, like I said, UConn, there's a lot of great teams out there. Iowa, there's some great basketball being played. And I think this generation, this younger generation that we all see is really latching onto it. And this mania that's going on is obviously helpful to not just her team, but other teams as well that play against Iowa.
Okay, we'll turn it over to Candy.
Okay, so Fox Sports is getting creative with its coverage of Caitlin Clark. Let's face it, she's going for the scoring championship. So it's going to stream all of her games. When she is on offense, the camera will specifically only be on her. And then the rest of the time, when she goes on defense, it'll be on the rest of the whole game, the whole team, both teams, because they're trying to watch her. They're allowing people to watch her milestone, her hopefully breaking this milestone. I think it's really cool. But my question to you is, what happens if all of a sudden now they want there's some other person going for another milestone on a different, so are we going to be streaming that and streaming this person and that person? I mean, it's cool if you really follow that one person, that's great. And don't get me wrong, I love all the attention on women's sports, whether it be gymnastics, Simone Biles, whether it be Caitlin Clark, whether it be the WNBA, or volleyball, because let's face it, even women's volleyball, especially in college, has taken such a huge giant leap comparatively, so that people are watching it and getting excited about it. And for that, and like Serena Williams, let's face it, I mean, she's no longer in competitive tennis, but just all of the attention to women and women in sports, I love it, because we don't have to just watch the men. The women can play too. Yes. Do they play at a different level, or is their game a little different? Yes, but that's okay, because men and women are different. And I love the fact that they're paying more attention to women's sports.
Well, now that I've had a chance to digest everybody's opinion on this, I'll just say I love innovation. And when it comes to sports, there's never any shortage of it. I remember back when we were growing up, George, one of the biggest innovators that I ever saw was Rune Arledge. He did all kinds of stuff.
Yes.
He really did. And the Caitlin Clark effect here reminds me of the day when Magic and Bird went from college over to the NBA. Now, albeit there have been a lot of great college players that ended up going to the WNBA, but I'm just wondering now with this Caitlin Clark, okay, is she going to be the biggest of them all, and might as well take that particular innovation and that it just makes it does kind of make you wonder a little bit. But her, there's a lot of innovators out there, and the more and more I see, I understand why a lot of those old geeks are getting out of the business after all, because we started with typewriters, and now who knows what the heck they're using. So and I'll make a reference in my book when it comes to technology, a great story that I had from the Tampa Tribune. I was over at Osceola County Stadium covering the Florida State League All-Star game. And what was interesting about it is I remember those computers that you had to go out there and put your suction cup in, with the phone. I submitted my story 5 times and never went through. I had to dictate 2 stories, still talk my editor into giving me a extension on the deadline, and we got it in. Now I was joking around with Lynn Henning, who will be on our show eventually when George and I can work out a date that works for both of us. And I told him the same story. Yeah, it's definitely a much different situation now, but he's glad that I shared the story with him. So just why am I tying it all in? Is it a book reference? Of course, there always will be on this show and anything I'm involved in. But the innovations about Caitlin Clark, this young lady, is totally phenomenal. Well, we do have time for pundits points, so I'm going to start off first. The one thing about the Super Bowl is this. Everybody can go to any event that they want, hang around press conferences, and this. I had a few favorite events. I always used to see the commissioner's State of the League address was one of my favorites. And I've always loved to go to that one. And there were a lot of other ones too, but the other one that I loved going to was a Hall of Fame selections. Now, there has been talk, because nobody can ever keep quiet in this news age anyways, that Steve McMichael, okay, could very well get into the Hall of Fame. And I hope and pray that he does, because this man here was not only a sensational player for the Chicago Bears. Let me tell you, that Bears history of defensive players has been unbelievable. We can date it back. Dick Butkus stands out, and I can go on with the list, and I'm not gonna. I want to keep the focus on Steve McMichael. But this guy here is battling ALS. Nothing would be more fitting to see Steve McMichael at least be selected to the Hall of Fame and somehow, some way, find a way to make it to Canton, Ohio one time. Let me tell you, I don't know how many, you may have millions of people coming from the state of Illinois, let alone how many people from Chicago to see this one. You really will. There will not, we talk about Hall of Fame speeches being tearful. Let me tell you, you wouldn't have enough water floating around in any eyebrow in Canton, Ohio, which I haven't been to yet. Been to 3 other ones. I do plan to get there at some point for Steve McMichael. This man is battling ALS, and he's a survivor. Please, God, let this guy be selected and make it to Canton in August. It's something the football world, the Chicago Bears, would all be proud of. And nobody can grade year in and year out, but I guarantee the fact that he battled ALS so I'm even at a loss for words with this one. Gracefully is unbelievable. Steve, God bless. God bless. I just hope everything works out for all the right reasons, not only this weekend, but also come August. Okay, you know what? Well, I'm talking about Chicago. I'm going to turn over to a guy who's from Illinois. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, this isn't going to be about the Bears tonight, but it's going to be about fans. Just for a second, just 1 second. I'm going to say this part. You're all complaining, or so a lot of you are complaining about Taylor Swift and the Taylor Swift effect and them showing her for 46 seconds out of a whole game. The NFL made $340 million extra there. They are worth that much right now because of her. It amazes me that fans to this day, for everything that we see in 2024, that they still treat this like Jimmy Connors in tennis or John McEnroe in tennis, that it's all individual, that you make all your money on tickets, that you do. It's like they treat everything like it's 1985 as much as they're supposed to be they're supposed to be in this era. But it's just like when you see owners, what is the number one thing from the owners? It's real estate. It's not the tickets are like 5 to 10% of everything. The fans just don't get that, and they don't get that it's all entertainment. I mean, Travis Kelce just falling straight into Taylor Swift is a huge deal, which they're not going to find too much of, and they're going to be sad if it ends. But you want to know what they're going to do? They're going to try to find another way. They're going to try to find another way to get this. So if you're all worried about the Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce deal, they're going to try to find another someday. Next couple 3 years when the next big thing comes through. And you know who else loves the idea of Taylor Swift? Kristen Juszczyk. Because guess what? Taylor wore her jacket during one of those games. She ended up getting a deal with the NFL. She got a deal with the NFL, and now she is going to unveil other surprise clothing at the Super Bowl. She came from a small little business, and her husband being, from the San Francisco 49ers, Kyle Juszczyk, to a big time and overnight because of Taylor Swift. You think this comes from just buying tickets? It doesn't. Time for you to all get used to it. This is the new world now.
Hold on. Okay, I'll turn over to George.
Well, my parting shot, Alvy, is going to be just along the lines of Scott. Been fortunate enough to see the Super Bowl twice, once in Atlanta with that great St. Louis Rams team. And it was just a fantastic game, as we all remember, against Tennessee. And then, of course, in Detroit, where the storyline was great, too, because Jerome, the bus, Bettis was playing, Pittsburgh was playing Seattle. And we all know that Pittsburgh won that game. So going to the Super Bowl, I echo Scott's sentiments. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of great opportunities, too, for a member of the media. But one thing I wanted to touch on, I think the NFL does it right. Tonight, they got a show called NFL Honors, where they announce their major award winners for the year. And I know every league has their own way of doing it. Baseball usually waits until after the World Series, and then they do one announcement per week or two announcements per week. Hockey does a really good job. They have an award ceremony, too, at the end of the season. Most times it was held in Las Vegas in recent years. NBA, I could care less. They don't have an award show. And, of course, Scott and I have covered so much auto racing over the years. We can't forget the great job NASCAR and IndyCar. They both have beautiful banquets. I was fortunate enough to go to one of the IndyCar awards banquets when it was held in Detroit downtown. and they do a terrific job. So kudos to the NFL. I know there's a lot going on this week, like Scott was referring to, the Hall of Fame announcements and the state of the commissioner's state of the league address, and a lot of great opportunities. There's a lot of goofballs too. Let's just be honest. A lot of goofy things happen in those media days. Some strange credentials are granted to some people for
Right.
people that aren't normally writers. So, anyways, enjoy the week, everybody. Enjoy the game. And hats off to the NFL. They're getting some things right.
Very well. All right, we'll turn over to Candy.
So for all the things the NFL is getting right, the thing they don't get right is the Pro Bowl. The Pro Bowl was the second time we had flag football again. The Pro Bowl games drew 5.75 million viewers on Sunday afternoon, 3.85 million on ABC, 1.83 million on ESPN, and 75,000 on Disney XD. It was the second season the event was a flag football game. The audience was down 8.5% from last year, and a new low for a live Pro Bowl, which it excludes the 2021 event, which was a virtual event, which only drew 1.8 million. The prior low for a live game was the Pro Bowl of 2006, which had 5.96 million on ESPN. While the game was down, the Thursday's NFL Pro Bowl skills competition had its best audience since 2018, drawing 1.14 million. Skills competition was great, but flag football is not what anybody that is watching the NFL really wants to see. I get players don't want to get injured, but there's got to be a different answer, because all of your other major sports put your Pro Bowl or whatever you want to call it in the middle of a season. NFL, think about this. In the middle of the season, have a bye week, have the Pro Bowl, have another bye week, and then start the second half of your season. And if you want to make it kind of interesting, put last year's Super Bowl champions against the best of the rest of the NFL. Do something, but don't do this flag football the weekend before Super Bowl, because it's not beneficial to you. You're losing people, not gaining people.
Well, it's amazing how you mentioned that, Candy, because when I saw Jerry Green, a friend of both George and I, great columnist, and I covered a Pro Bowl. So it's good. Glad you went. You know what his attitude was? I don't even care about him. It's a waste of time. And when you hear that from Jerry Green, my gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, Jerry Green, to me, you talk about one of the greatest writers of all time, let alone the fact that up until he had health problems and subsequently passed away, he's telling you that it is a waste of time. And the NFL has never been able to get it right. They wanted to get rid of the game for a while, and they're trying to find any way to reward their players, even if it means going to this level. You know what? Jerry's right. I only went to one Pro Bowl, and really, under our platform, never bothered to apply for another one. The only way they could get me to go to the Pro Bowl if it was in Hawaii. Other than that, forget it. And I went to the one when it was in Miami, so I didn't have to worry about traveling to get to it. So we have a little bit of time left. So, Candy, will you just let everybody know Fire Up follows us? So, Candy, give everybody a preview of what Fire Up. You're going to have you, George, Ralph, and Jeremy Ballrick. All you need a basic minute and a half, 2 minutes to get everybody know what they can look forward to after we're done.
We always talk about things exciting, but one thing that we do on the show is we have a segment that's called My Town. And My Town is where you can pick one topic from either the town you currently live in or the town you grew up with, town you love, something related to your town. So you can always kind of find out where we either live now or where we lived back in the day to find out My Town.
Well, I think what's really nice about that segment, and I don't mind talking about some of our commentators, this to me is the segment that Ralph Williams built. And if you don't know anything about Ralph Williams, okay, this guy here is fun to work with, and he talks about Pittsburgh. So you know what, you know, Ralph, we all know you, and he's a friend of the show and has a tendency to go out there and appear on chat room. At least now you have an opportunity to know a little bit about Pittsburgh and whatever everybody else has to bring to the show. And of course, Jeremy Ballrick and George Eichhorn do a good job as well. And Candy, well, that's her. She's the host. What can I say? So with that said, this time to let everybody know how they get hold of you. We're going to lead off with Jacob.
Sundays, on Sundays, when that kind comes, we do it full time. It will be the professor and the pupils. We have that. Then Mondays are then Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, and sometimes Fridays. I am Sideline Sports and South Florida Tribune. I'm also Jake the Pundit on Twitter and Jake the Pundit 1 on TikTok.
Very good. All right, George, you can promote your book a little bit more tonight.
Yeah, this is the book. Scott's got a book out there. I was very gracious to accept his invitation to write a forward for his book. He's in my book as well, as we covered Detroit and Michigan sports broadcasters on the air by Arcadia Press. There's a link to the book in the column that I write in the South Florida Tribune under the Motor City Tribune. There's a link at the bottom of the column if you're interested in the book or looking at pictures of the book before you make a decision. You can reach me at gicorn@yahoo.com. You can reach me on LinkedIn. You can reach me on Twitter, X, or whatever it goes by at Sanji Sports 99. And of course, Facebook as well. So what shows do I like best? All of them. I mean, really, 108 Stitches, the Sports Exchange, and Pundit's Pundit, and Fire Up. I'm saying you great lineup of shows. Happy to be part of it. And Scott and I go back over 40 some years together, starting out at an ABC owned station in Detroit called WXYZ. And it's been a great partnership and a lot of fun things he and I covered, some together, a lot of them on our own. And then, of course, Candy has added so much to our coverage as well with her photography and all her great writing too. So good to be part of the effort here, and looking forward to many more.
All right, Candy, I want you to talk about the shows that you represent. I know that you are involved with a lot of different ones. So go ahead, this opportunity to promote all the shows that you're a part of, and also give everybody a basic idea about my book. I've talked about it a lot, but you see it from a different perspective because you helped me put a lot of the things together. But talk about your shows and then our book.
So if you don't know, I am actually married to the Motor City Madmouth. And yes, he wrote a book, Lessons from the Microphone. Sorry, George, I'm going to pop it up in the corner there again. Tuning into the enduring wisdom of visionary leaders. He talks about his over 40 years in the media and how it's changed. How he used to sit down and you used to look at the sports ticker, and he had a 6-hour radio show. He interviewed the likes of Muhammad Ali. There's a picture of him and Muhammad Ali. And to be honest with you, it was one of his first interviews. So it's a very young picture of Scott with a young Muhammad Ali. He interviewed Tommy Lasorda back in the day. But he's interviewed a plethora of managers, coaches, players, sports media people. The Bob Lee, and I could go on and on and on. Leslie Visser, you name it, it's in that book. At least it's the first edition, because he is going to be writing another version or another part 2, I guess, because things are still changing. But as for me, I take sports photography. Scott got me into it. He decided, hey, let's go to a game and I'll write the stories. You take the pictures to complement my story. I'm like, okay, why not? So you can see some of my photography on the SouthFloridaTribune.com. I am part of, because he's started getting me into this podcasting, broadcasting. You'll find me sometimes here on Pundit's Pundit, sometimes on Sports Exchange. But my show is primarily Thursday nights, 9:15, 9:30. It's called Fire Up. Sometimes I do it on Sunday mornings, and it's Sunday mornings, it's just Jeremy and I. Thursday nights, George joins Jeremy and I, and so does Ralph. And sometimes we have a guest. You just never know. Tuesday nights, I join a different network, and it's 3 Chicks in a Pod or Chicks and Salsa. And it's just us chicks talking sports. In fact, Jennifer Matthew Lewis right now is out at the Super Bowl on Radio Row covering the Super Bowl for us chicks. So if you like that, go to 3 Chicks and a Pod, and Tuesday nights, 7:30ish. We broadcast. Come see us, come check us out.
Well done,
I
Candy.
produce all of Scott's shows on South Florida Tribune, so I'm always either behind the scenes or sometimes I pop up on camera.
Yeah, she's a pulse of what we do here with the website. Just a couple of quick reminders. We want to thank our friends at Sideline Sports and NGBN TV for their exceptional coverage of the Super Bowl out in Las Vegas. And just a couple of quick reminders, just the audio version of Pundit's Pundit can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. Our website's www.southfloridatribune.com, and you can send your topic ideas to southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Well, Denzel Snipes, hope you're having a good time. So on behalf of, and we'll look forward to having you back in the seat, on behalf of George Eichhorn, Jacob Christopher, Candy Ebling, and myself, Scott Morgan, Ruffalo, sitting down. Thank you for joining us in this edition of Pundit's Pundit. Good evening, everybody. Be safe over the weekend.